Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy Monday. Is that an oxymoron? I don't know. Jury's still out on that. You're salty. Well,
Hey,
good morning, Salty.
good morning, good morning. I was backstage, but I had a little tech issue, but I'm back. I'm all good now.
All right. It's good to have you up here with me.
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm excited to be here on episode 2
Yeah.
of your new morning show. So,
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a morning person. I mean, I've had to adjust a little
yeah,
bit when we do deep dives at night and we go for like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours.
I know, right? I'm with you. We're both up early in the morning. I wished I wasn't, but my clock says get up. Like, not my actual clock, but my internal clock. I'm always awake before daylight, but I get my coffee and I'm like ready to true crime, So we have more
Yeah.
energy. By the end of the day, we're just like, especially if you got normal shit to do.
Yeah, I started becoming I became a paper boy when I was 11 years old, and technically you weren't supposed to be able to until you were 13, but 11 years old, getting up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning, depending on if it was a weekday or Sunday, because the Sunday papers were huge and took a long time. But like starting at 11 years old, I was up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And then freshman year in college, I worked in a donut shop downtown Lafayette. So 3:30 a.m., time to make the donuts. So
I
that's hard to untrain your body from that.
I was never a morning person until I had kids and had to be, because I was always a night owl and an insomniac, whatever. So I slept late. I'm not gonna lie. But once you have those kids, them days are long gone, right? And then
Oh yeah.
adulthood comes. You have to get up, go to work, and all that stuff. So yeah, my clock's like, nope, get your ass up.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome in everyone. Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Kelt Dizzy. Thank you guys for modding. As I appreciate it very much. And I appreciate
Definitely.
everybody hanging with us too.
Y'all got your coffee and ready to get your true crime fix this morning? I do.
Yes, I do.
Good deal. Let me
So
sign in on my computer so I can. When I'm on my phone, I tried to join on the PC, but it was telling me I had to connect my YouTube to join the chat, and that's the same issue I have on my phone. So I'm going to go to the PC. I'm on the phone, but I'm going to be able to chat with everybody. If I go on the PC and watch it, so I'm giving you a
yeah,
view and co-hosting.
right. Double duty. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have split monitors, so I have dual monitors. So on one of my monitors, I've got my StreamYard up, and on one of my monitors, I've got the YouTube up, so I can comment because
That's what
StreamYard doesn't allow you to tag people. Like when you're commenting in the comments on
Yeah,
StreamYard, you can't tag people.
I noticed that, and I'm like, that is so aggravating to me, because when I'm in other chats, I can do that, right? But I noticed the same thing. But I think I need to get a second monitor as well.
Yeah, they're actually really
Easier.
affordable. I like
Yeah.
I like I like the 32-inch curved monitor, and I would probably have one on each side. I actually have back in Indiana. I still have one that I could have brought out with me, and I didn't. But I
Well,
like.
that other PC I had, that newer, this was the one my son gave me that he bought a year ago, but I use my TV is also my computer monitor, because I
Oh,
don't watch
okay,
TV a lot, right? And I can
right.
switch back and forth between PC and TV. But and if I go by an actual, like you just said, a curved monitor, like a good, I can still use the TV monitor as well.
Yeah. So today, there have been some recent happenings in the Idaho 4. Ann filed some stuff, and Lori Daybell filed some stuff a couple of weeks ago. And last week in Delphi, the defense attorneys filed some stuff. So there's some stuff to talk about with that. I kind of want to go over this Indianapolis case first, just kind of get everybody warmed up before we dive in. I think I'll probably hold Delphi to last, because that's something It's like, I think 24 pages. I think that motion to correct is like 24 pages. So it could be a deep dive. I don't want to do a deep dive. That's not what the morning show's for, but I do want to touch on some things that I want to watch that video
Okay.
and have that address mapped in Google Earth now. So I can orient myself when I'm watching that video of where we're seeing that white van go by. So I want to get to that last, but
Okay.
I want to do, so in 2021, Raymond Childs III was arrested for killing 5 of his family members, including his brother's pregnant girlfriend, in their house on the east side of Indianapolis on Adams Street. And so he was charged with 6 counts of murder. It went to trial and there was a mistrial. They quickly retried it and he was convicted. His sentence is coming up in February. His sentencing is coming up in February. But I just want to take a quick look at that because I haven't seen anything of that in the national media. There are
I
some.
haven't either. And I even because I don't watch the national media anymore. I'll be straight up honest. I haven't watched unless I see it on YouTube, right? If I see something come across, but I don't. And I only watch if it's true crime related. But I haven't heard of this case even on social media. So
Which is
except
crazy
from
for
you.
a quintuple murder and a guy charged with 6 counts of murder. Like
Yeah.
how are we not talking about it? He was 17 at the time. I did say in one of my summaries of today's show that he was a teenager convicted. Actually, he's not a teenager anymore. He's probably 20, 21, maybe even 22. But back in 21, when he did it, he was 17 years old and he was charged as an adult.
I
So,
wonder how many. I need to look at the stats on this, but how many multiple killings have happened? You know what I mean? People seem to just like go off these days and take out a whole family, or like the Pike family murders. If you guys are familiar, they're still going. That was years ago, and they're still having trial. But like the whole
yeah.
family was taken out. Um, and what's triggering people that the psychological part to me is like, what's going on?
Yeah, those guys had some like Boondock Saints tendencies. They thought they were like Boondock Saints brothers, and
Yeah.
that was part of what motivated that. But pure evil, pure evil.
Well, I
This is
mean,
this
yeah.
this is something different here. He got pissed off because he got in trouble with his dad for being over at his girlfriend's house with the car, and his dad said, "You need to get that car back here now." And he got pissed off. He had a gun and he used it to unalive everybody in that house except for his little brother who barely survived. And I think he survived by pretending to be dead, if I remember right.
Wow. That happens a lot. People who do that, to play dead just to save themselves.
Carrying a handgun without a license. I'm pretty sure when you're 17, you're not allowed to carry a handgun. So that's kind of an automatic charge.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't what I thought it was. We can just read through the article. Let's just read through the article. A
Okay.
17-year-old accused of fatally shooting 5 people and an unborn child, many of them his own family members, has been charged with multiple counts of murder. So this is, when is this dated? January 28th, 2021. So exactly 4 years ago. Exactly tomorrow, 4 years ago. Wow. Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears announced Thursday that 17-year-old Raymond Ronald Lee Childs III was charged with 6 counts of murder, which includes Hawkins' unborn child, attempted murder, and carrying a handgun without a license.
Listen,
Under Indiana law. Yes,
let me
go
ask
ahead.
you a question. This you might be about to get to that. I don't know the law in Indiana on this, but would he be charged as an adult at 17? In
That's the
Florida, you
last
can't.
sentence of this paragraph.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay. I'll
Under
let you
Indiana
get to
law,
it.
he will be tried as an adult.
Okay.
So the victims are Kezzie Childs, 42, Raymond Childs, 42, his dad. So that would be Raymond Ronald Lee Childs II, Elijah Childs, Rita Childs, Kara Hawkins, Rita Childs, 13. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, that's so sad. The children,
Kara
I
Hawkins.
mean,
Yeah.
it's bad when you want to take out the adults you're mad at, but when you go after the kids as well, what is the point? That proves your own psychopath stuff, you know? That's ugh.
Kara Hawkins, 19. Hawkins' unborn baby were pronounced dead shortly before 4 a.m. Sunday in a home in the 3500 block of Adams Street. A 15-year-old boy who fled the house was shot several times but survived. That's his little brother. Here's everything we know so far. Childs is a son of the oldest victims, Kezzy and Raymond Childs. Elijah and Rita were his siblings, as is the surviving victim. A relative later told police that Childs lived at the same home on Adams Street. So he was living there. I'm pretty sure the story is now he took the car out. According to a woman identified as Childs' girlfriends in court records, Childs went over to her house Saturday night and planned to sleep there. While he was there, his dad called him to tell him he needs to come home. I think he's got his dad's car, if I remember right. But the girlfriend said she called an Uber. Oh, no. So he didn't have the car. Okay. He had to Uber back. Childs took an Uber back to Adams Street. Not clear exactly when. You can find out that from phone data. That's not that hard to find out. Anyway, she said Childs returned to her house sometime between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. He was carrying 2 bags of clothes and said his dad had kicked him out. Around 30 minutes later, she got an alert there had been a shooting on Adams Street. She asked Childs if he knew anything about it. He said no. Later, she convinced him to go to the crime scene, said Childs was nervous to go to the scene, and when he got there, he began crying and acted a clown. That's bizarre. The two then went back to her house around 2 p.m. Investigators are still piecing together what happened. But according to court records, the surviving brother, his little brother, who he shot multiple times, told police that he had gotten in trouble that night for leaving the house without permission. Okay, he didn't take the car, he just left without permission. Childs got home, his father told him he would be in trouble later. The surviving brother was downstairs with his parents when he heard 2 or 3 gunshots from upstairs. He heard his sister yell, "He shot Elijah." Childs then allegedly went downstairs and shot his parents. The surviving brother, who was in the laundry room on the floor, said he heard a gunshot and then his dad saying, "I'm sorry, Raymond, I love you." Those were his last words. Wow. The surviving brother said he fled the house once the shooting.
That's messed up. I mean, wow, that's heavy.
The surviving brother said he fled the house once the shooting stopped. He said as Childs chased him, he told him, "I can give you $40. Please don't kill me." His little brother's offering his big brother $40 not to kill him.
Oh my gosh. Those poor babies. Wow.
And he was a minor too, which is why they aren't naming him.
Right. Can you imagine being a child and begging for your life and offering to pay for, even being put in that situation is terrifying. Well, this guy deserves to get the adult punishment and to the fullest extent of the punishment. Wow.
His little brother said Raymond just looked at me and then he shot me in the leg. I fell down. He shot me in the arm. And then he tried to shoot me in my head, but missed, I guess. Childs was found at a home on Wyatt Drive in Indianapolis. Police said it was a relative's home. He was arrested without incident. Each murder charge has a sentencing range of 45 to 60 years, which could be served either consecutively or concurrently. For attempted murder, the range is 20 to 40. The death penalty cannot be pursued because he is a minor. He cannot get the death penalty because he was 17 when he did that horrific thing. Oy, 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 oy. So let's go look at his mistrial. Share screen. Mistrial declared. This is just a really short video just to give you a clue about what happened in July of last year.
A mistrial.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tonight, we are learning there will be a hearing next week to determine what to do with the case of a man charged with killing nearly all his family.
Earlier today, a Marion County judge declared a mistrial in the case of Raymond Childs III. You probably remember last night at 5, we were bringing you the opening statements from his trial. He was 17 at the time of that mass murder in his East Side home on Adams Street that took place back in January of 2021.
He was on trial for the murders of his parents, as well as his 13-year-old sister, 18-year-old brother, and his brother's 19-year-old pregnant girlfriend. However, there will now have to be a new trial because of that mistrial. A spokesperson for the Marion County Prosecutor's Office tells us during witness testimony today, something was said on the stand leading the court to declare that mistrial.
So we'll take a look at what was said now. Close out of that. I have like 24. I have 24 tabs open on my computer, so I'm gonna sort through them.
V has a good comment there. To be honest, life is probably worse than the DP in this one. Yeah.
Well, if he gets sent to
prison won't
Westville,
be too kind to him.
Yeah.
Right? If he goes to Westville, prison's not going to be too kind. From what we hear about them Indiana prisons, he's not going to have a good time, is he?
Nope.
Especially for harming children.
So this is just a written article. This isn't a video, so I'm going to read through.
So is he in safekeeping as well, since he harmed children?
No, because I won't get into that on a Monday morning.
I'm just, you know me, I'm being a salty ass.
Yep. A judge has declared a mistrial in the case of the Indianapolis man accused of fatally shooting 5 people, including a pregnant woman. Marion County Superior Judge Chris Miller declared the mistrial Tuesday. Childs 20 was arrested the day after the attack. So he was 20 when the mistrial was declared. So he's probably 21 now. Mistrial came. So here's the key of why the mistrial was called. The mistrial came after a key witness in the case, Alonso Valles, testified that in the hours after the killings, he had picked up Childs in the hours after the killings. He picked up Childs and drove him around Indianapolis. Don't know what that means. He said Childs later covered his eyes and wept while laying on a bed at Valles' home in Plainfield, just west of Indianapolis. I know where Plainfield is. Y'all remember that? Valles. So Valles is on the stand as a witness for the state. And he says to Raymond in court, y'all remember that? And the defense and prosecution teams both quickly sought to cut him off. And the judge tried to intercede from the bench, but Valles continued asking, why did you do it, Raymond?
So I'm not understanding. What did the guy say that was wrong?
Why did you do it, Raymond? Apparently was what triggered the mistrial.
So he was telling the court what the conversation he had with the guy was, and that caused the mistrial?
Yes. So let's look at what the judge. So
was
the judge
wasn't supposed to bring it up, I guess.
Well, he wasn't supposed to accuse him of being guilty in court because that's up to the jury to decide. So the judge admonished Valles for his comments in front of the jurors and sent them from the courtroom so he could speak with attorneys. And then he spoke with each juror individually. Miller then declared a mistrial, saying he's firmly convinced that Mr. Childs cannot get a fair trial. So he prejudiced the jury. That was a prejudicial comment.
Okay, but why put him on the stand to even talk if he couldn't talk about the conversation? Was he supposed to say the guy just broke down and cried and that was the end of the story?
Okay, a question. What did Raymond Childs say to you? And your answer directly to that is different than saying, why did you do it? Why did you kill him?
So he's saying that he was speaking directly to the defendant when he's saying that?
Yes.
Oh, it wasn't like a part of their conversation they were having.
No.
Okay. Thank you, V. Y'all, good Lord, y'all. Maybe I haven't had enough coffee, but I was so confused. Thank you. Okay, now it makes sense, Joe.
Yeah, okay. So, mistrial declared. They actually went back to trial really quickly. So let's stop that one. And then present the retrial. New trial underway. Here we go.
And now to the opening statements in court today for the Indianapolis man who's accused of shooting and killing nearly all his family. Raymond Childs III tonight is accused of killing his parents, his 13-year-old sister, 18-year-old brother, and his brother's 19-year-old pregnant girlfriend. Our Logan Gay joins us in the newsroom tonight with what we heard in court today. Logan?
Scott Childs was tried for the murder earlier this year, but the judge declared a mistrial over something that was said during witness testimony. Now attorneys are back in court again, combing through the details from that early morning back in 2021. Raymond Childs III sat in court once again, listening to the prosecutor and his defense attorney lay out the gruesome details of his family's murder. It happened in the early morning hours back in January 2021. The prosecution says the shooting started upstairs.
He shot his brother once in the back of the head as he was watching television. Next to Elijah in bed was Elijah's girlfriend, Kiara Hawkins. The defendant shot her once through her right ear.
Kiara was 9 months pregnant at the time. The prosecution says Child's 13-year-old sister died next.
He shot her once in the chest and left her for dead on the floor of her bedroom.
Then the prosecution says Childs III went to the basement where his parents were and allegedly killed them too.
I love you, Raymond. Were the last words of Raymond Childs II.
And the prosecution says Childs didn't know it, but his younger brother was also in the basement at the time of the shooting.
He watched as his brother went into the basement. He heard the brief struggle. He heard his father's last words, and he heard the gunshots.
The prosecution team says the younger brother escaped the house, but was allegedly chased down the street and shot. Officers say they talked to the younger brother before he went into surgery and asked him who fired the shot. Investigators say the teenager told them.
My brother, Raymond Ronald Lee Childs III.
But Childs III defense team says he was not at the house that night. They say he was at his girlfriend's house after being kicked out by his dad. And they say 2 guns were used, suggesting 2 shooters. They allege Childs III is in court because of a misguided investigation and misidentification.
First, when he talked to the officers, he said he couldn't be sure who the perpetrator was. He also used the word they when referencing the shooters. And he couldn't be sure that he saw his brother with a gun that night. Both weapons were used upstairs and both weapons were used downstairs, inconsistent with there being just one shooter. You'll also see no physical evidence tying Raymond Childs III to those weapons. No fingerprints, no DNA.
Childs faces a maximum sentence of life in prison without parole if convicted.
Logan, thanks so much.
Yeah, just an eyewitness that says that my brother killed my family and tried to kill me.
Well, where are they getting the multiple guns? Was say how? Okay.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. That is an interesting point.
Different.
I'm guessing he had 2 handguns, and
He may have. So he lived there, but they didn't find any fingerprints anywhere near the victims or nothing like that.
no, I think they were just talking to. I think she was just referring to the guns themselves. I don't think his fingerprints or DNA.
Was that
were
and that was his defense attorney just speaking, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I'd have to deep dive her a little more in the other stuff. Take it with a grain of salt what you hear, but yeah, that's an interest. So so is he going to get a retrial? What was the date on the new trial? Is he getting one?
He got one already. So let's go into. He got one already. That was that last TV clip that we saw. That was the beginning of the new trial, which was last fall. I mean, they turned it around quickly. They seated a jury and they did a new trial like really fast. And I think they deliberated for 5 hours before they convicted him, if I remember right. But I don't have that article. I forgot to grab that article where he was convicted. But let's look at his My Case file. It's long, like it's almost as long as Richard Allen's summary My Case. Here we go. So this is the state of Indiana versus Raymond Ronald Lee Childs III. Murder, cannot have a death penalty enhancement because he's a minor. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 counts of murder entered on January 25th, 2021. Now, no contact. So there was a motion for no contact, an order for no contact with his little brother, obviously, for obvious reasons. Discovery filed. pretrial orders. This thing is long. Notices filed, notices filed, notices filed. Hearing scheduling activity. There's something good down here, I promise. Well, we'll find it in a second, and then we'll be done with this. Okay, jury trial, rescheduled, canceled. So that's June. June of 24. Motion filed, hearing. Judicial notice of media request for cameras in the court. Guess what the court said?
No.
Nope. No cameras in the court.
Indiana
kinda saw
really,
some, though.
I'm sorry, but the people, all of you Indianians or whatever you call yourselves, y'all need to really get on your judicial system and say, we're not taking this no more. What's all this no camera stuff? You know, I mean, something's got to change in that state, and it's going to take pushback from the citizens. Just y'all keep that in mind. I'm in
Order
Florida. Everything's in the open. Bring it in the light.
Juror
Bring it into the
separation.
sunshine.
Yes, Indiana likes to operate in the dark. Yes, they do. Order issued on July 16th for juror separation. I wonder if somebody had a problem. Jury trial rescheduled, canceled. Come on. Darn, there's so much in this case. Canceled jury trial. So there's a canceled jury trial. Notice of deposition. Recipe for transcript. I must have missed it. I missed the mistrial filing. It was in there somewhere. There's just so much stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a new jury. Then there's a new jury trial in October. Sorry, guys, this is boring. I know. Approval of media request. So, judicial notice of media request for cameras in the court. So here we go. Okay, on October 25th, right here. Judgment of the jury. Murder, guilty, murder, guilty, murder, guilty, murder, guilty, murder, guilty. Attempted murder, guilty. Carrying a handgun without a license, guilty. So then the judge says, oh, okay, now the cameras can come in the court after the trial's over. So that's basically going to be for sentencing, which is right here at the bottom, scheduled for February 7th. So we're just less than 2 weeks away from the sentencing hearing.
That's crazy to allow a camera in for the sentencing part, but not anything else. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Indiana is strange.
So it'll be interesting to see how that sentencing goes, whether it's consecutive or concurrent sentencing. But that's six months.
Right.
He's
not going to be out anytime soon. He's going to be in for a long, long time.
Well, probably not for the rest of his life.
Richard Allen got 130 years?
Yes.
For 2 murders, so I can only imagine what this guy might get.
Yeah, he's not probably ever getting out of jail.
No goodness, no.
So,
you know, that's a violent crime. That's a very violent crime. Can we trust you ever back on the streets? No.
So let's slide over to Lori Daybell. She filed a handwritten motion a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I hadn't even read through that yet. I saw it and I saved it, but I hadn't had a chance to even get to it yet. So,
I think I may have closed that window. Hold on, I got to open it back up. Everybody, bear with me here. No, it's there. I just got to find it. Present, share screen. Here we go. Lori's handwritten motion to dismiss. So this is for her second case. So if you notice right up here in the top right corner, there are 2 cases listed there. And there are 2 different murder cases that she's being held for. This is the second one, not the one that she's scheduled to begin jury selection on the end of March.
This one isn't for Charles, then. This is for Brandon.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Because Charles Vallow was Lori's ex-husband that she is being charged with, and Brandon Boudreaux was her niece's husband that they attempted to murder.
Right. So that's why she's got two separate cases here. Motion to dismiss for lack of speedy trial. The defendant, Lori Daybell, requests this court to dismiss case CR 2022-001242-001 with prejudice, which means that she can't be charged for it again.
Yeah.
The defendant was extradited. Facts. One, the defendant was extradited from Idaho on November 30th of 20. Does she say 2025? Well, that's not an accurate fact because we haven't got to November 30th of 2025 yet.
Did she write it wrong?
She's the smartest person in the room. Don't question.
Wait, December 7th, 2023. Where
No, look at that. Look at number one.
I see it. Yep. Yeah, Lori made a mistake.
Oops, smartest person in the room.
Lori, you made an oopsie, Lori. You need to refile this bitch.
The defendant was arraigned for two separate charges on December 7th, 2023. Okay, was she extradited in 2023 to Arizona? Like, did she just mix up the 5 with the 3? Okay. And then she was arraigned. Yeah. A trial date was set at that time for a speedy trial on April 1st, 2024. Speedy trial must commence within 150 days. The judge deemed these charges complex, which gives the state 270 days to give the defendant a speedy trial. A new trial date was set for August 1st, 2024, with the last possible day to begin trial, September 2nd, 2024, to be in compliance with a speedy trial within 270 days. Okay, she's mathing here.
Forrest says proofreading helps. He ain't lying, is he?
No. That's why I always use Microsoft Word, because Microsoft Word tells me when I screw up. But Microsoft Word wouldn't know that's supposed to be 2023 instead of 2025.
Yeah.
It helps to have a second set of eyes. She needs to make a friend here in Maricopa County and have somebody else looking over that stuff.
She needs a legal assistant.
Yeah, right.
She needs a paralegal.
She needs one of those jail paralegals.
Yeah. I'm sure she can find one if she just makes some friends.
Yeah, shares her Jolly Rancher lipstick.
Well, that's who helps her learn all that to start with. She didn't go into jail knowing that. Trust me.
No, she said in that hearing that I was at, and the judge was asking her, well, what makes you qualified to represent yourself? She says, I've been studying the law ever since I've been in jail. So
no, I mean, she didn't go into jail knowing to wear Jolly Rancher for lipstick.
Oh,
she was shown that by the other inmates.
Yes, correct.
You'd be surprised at what them girls can come up with to make themselves look beautiful in the jailhouse.
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole show to dive into.
Now she needs to pay it forward. Now she needs to teach somebody else.
Right? They're going to use them strings on their eyebrows and make ramen noodle meals and stuff.
The new trial date was set for August 1st, 2024, with the last possible day. Oh, I read that already. The former defense team filed a motion for continuance, which the defendant objected to on the record. But it was granted, and a new trial date was set for February 24th, 2025. Ooh. That's in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
A Rule 11 was also filed by former defense team, further delaying the trial, and a new trial date of March 31st, 2025 was set. Okay, that is when this Judge Boreski, or whatever his name is, said that they're going to start jury selection on March 31st, but only in Charles's death, not in the other case. And this is the case that she's protesting this. It was now been 314 days since the defendant was arraigned. On January 10, 2025, Judge Boreski had declined to set a trial date on the second case, which is the one she's talking about here. The trial date that is set on March 31st, 2025 is for only the 2021 case. It is the position of the defense that no trial date has ever been set for the second case. and the alleged crime occurred over 5 years ago. The state of Arizona has plenty of time to figure this out. Oh my gosh, you put an exclamation.
So what did she want to do? Be tried for both at the same time?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, come on, Lori. We can make that happen. That's what I'd tell her. Are you ready to go to trial right now, baby? Let's go.
At no time has the state ever been willing to combine these two charges into one trial. The state has maintained from the beginning that there will be two separate trials with two separate juries. Therefore, why did they not schedule two trials at the arraignment? Why did the state arraign the defendant for both cases on the same day, knowing that they could not provide two separate speedy trials? That's true. That's a really good logistical point, honestly. Like,
well, yeah, but
murder has no statute of limitations. So they could have tried the attempted murder case first.
that's
and
what
not
I'm
even
thinking.
not even charge the other one, and then once that one's done, then charge her for the murder, because there's no statute of limitations.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, now I'm not positive, but I think she was initially charged with Charles first, and then they ended up bringing down the charges for Brandon. So I don't know if that's correct, and I don't know if that plays a part in it, but I'm with you. Why not try her on Brandon's case first? Get it out of the way, because it's a conspiracy to attempt to commit, and then go into Charles's case. Yeah.
So I mean, she's making good arguments that, for me as a non-legal person, kind of makes sense. If the state would have arraigned the defendant on one charge and then arraigned the defendant on the second charge 1 month later, the two speedy trials could have been maintained. The state failed to do so. True. By March 31st, 2025, it will have been 394 days since the defendant was arraigned. The defendant has never waived her right to a speedy trial. The Sixth Amendment declares, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial in the state of Arizona. Oh, so you do want cameras in there?
Now she wants public. Damn it, girl. Okay, bring it, Lori.
In the state of
Demand
Arizona,
those cameras.
right, the designated speedy trial is to be within 150 days of arraignment. If the case is deemed complex and the date of speedy trial is extended, I don't know what that word is, to 270 days from the arraignment. No trial has ever been scheduled for the second case. Therefore, the defendant's constitutional rights have been complicitly violated. I don't know those two words go together. Anyway, complicitly violated by the state of Arizona. The only remedy to this violation of this defendant's constitutional right to a speedy trial is to dismiss the second case for the conspiracy. At no time has a trial been given for, at no time has a trial ever been scheduled for. The defendant's constitutional rights have been violated. Government must follow its own rules. Government sometimes doesn't follow its own rules. We know that in Delphi. You got 24 hours to notify when somebody's been arrested. He was arrested. Richard Allen was arrested. His wife hired an attorney. Nick McClellan knew that he had an attorney representing him and still held a safekeeping hearing without him or his attorney present.
Yeah,
they violate their own rules. An evidentiary hearing is requested to Judge Justin Boreski, County Attorney Trina Kay, Defense Attorney Lori Daybell, representing herself.
Defense Attorney Lori Daybell. Oh, wow.
And who is this Jeff White 63 at Cox.net? Who is that?
I think that's kind of like her liaison kind of thing. Like, I think she was assigned somebody. There was something about that with that last hearing that we watched. In those two hearings, she had a female public defender that was clearly kind of out of her league. And she even said one time, I'm not up to speed on this case, because Lori had her previous counsel dismissed. And then they assigned her this new counsel, or the previous counsel resigned or whatever. I don't know, whatever it was.
This new gal came on, but there was a guy that was there at the defense's table that Lori actually interacted with more than she did this female attorney. I wonder if that's him, but why does he have just like a generic email, jeffwhite63@cox.net?
I have no idea. Email him.
I may just have to say, yeah, I will.
Be like, let's email him
He's
and be
probably
like,
got-
hey, dude, who are you?
Probably got like
can we
43,000 emails in his inbox.
Can we get
right
an interview? Who are you? We need to know, man. Well, we'll go at it a lot nicer than that and more professional, of course.
Right.
Maybe I
So
should let
that's
Joe
it.
handle that.
That's her motion to dismiss the second trial.
Wow. I wonder when the judge, so that was filed a few weeks ago, right? So I wonder when there will be a ruling on that or if there has been yet. I haven't followed up on that part.
Yeah, he's got time because that's the second case. The jury trial selection on March 31st is for the first case. So this was a motion to dismiss the second case. So he's got time to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I would guess it wouldn't take him more than a month, 30 days.
Oh gosh, no, you probably, there's a limit on how long you can take, to take to make those rulings. There should be. I mean, it's not that hard.
Yep.
You rule by the law, or whatever. Excuse me. But, so yeah, we'll see how far she gets with it. She's giving it a good fight, isn't she?
Yeah, she just needs to get her years correct.
Yeah, she, like Forrest said, proofreading helps. Maybe she'll get some assistance,
Yeah.
when she gets it pointed out to her that she made some mistakes, maybe she'll get it together.
So give us a little update on what's going on in the Idaho 4 Coburger case. What happened last week? What can we look forward to in the near future?
Well, let me take a look at the docket this morning just to see if there's anything that's come down because I haven't checked this morning, but I want to do a show this week on the stuff that we just saw in the hearing because we haven't really had a chance to go into too much of it since then. But we heard a lot of, the motions to suppress argument and motion for the Franks hearing. And the judge, even that he granted her the hearing to hear her argument for a Franks motion, and he might grant her one. That's intriguing to me. And I wonder what the basis, is it just that? Because she named there was 3 particulars, right? And I don't know which particular would get her the Franks hearing, if it's the IGG stuff or if it's something different. But right now, let me see here. They haven't scheduled anything new as far as a next court date because we were just in court. So the next one on the books, nope, those are all old ones from Judge that were vacated. The next one right now is scheduled for April, and it's another motion hearing, but that's subject to change. We might get I feel like we'll get more hearings before then because these, she's already made a lot of her arguments on the motions to suppress. Now the judge just has to rule. So let me take a look and see if he's made if anything's dropped on the rulings. I was looking at the case summary right there.
Yeah. So what were the motion? What were just briefly summarize what those motions were?
Okay. She wants everything thrown out because she was saying that the warrants weren't properly obtained. And then everything after that, of course, is fruit of the poison tree. So let me slide down here to the motions and I'll tell you exactly which ones those motions were. That's Lori's appeal in Idaho. Okay. So today's the 27th, the last thing to drop. Now see, not Idaho, but Ada County is slow to upload to the docket. It'll come up on the case summary and you may see it there. But then it takes them a few days to get it uploaded because I guess because they're way busier and have way more, bad guys in jail with court cases. So the last thing we saw was to allow the state witness to testify via Zoom. And so during that closed hearing they had last week, when we couldn't get on because it was closed and we streamed all day waiting. excuse me, there was a witness that was allowed to testify via Zoom. We don't know who that witness was and to what they testified to. So let me look at, tell you real quick. There was all these motions to suppress. Let me get up here to them, and they're all listed so that it'll be easy to read off. Pass the state's objections to all of it. Motions to strike. Okay. They want the Amazon stuff suppressed, the apartment search suppressed, the Apple warrant, the arrest warrant, the two AT&T first warrant, cell phone data, Google, the pen trap and trace, the person in his in-person search in Idaho and in Pennsylvania. They want the white Elantra suppressed. They want the search of it. They want the search of his parents' home also suppressed. And there was a lot of interesting things said in those motions. So we're going to have to like do a deep dive just into those motions again and get real familiar with them. You know what I mean? So that we can, because we're waiting on the rulings on all of those. And a lot of these were discussed in the closed portions of that hearing. And then we heard some of them opened in open court.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot in those motions, and I really like this judge. I I think that he held both sides' feet to the fire. Like
he did, he really did.
But he especially challenged Ann and her team when like she's just throwing stuff at the wall, and he's like, "Hey, you're just throwing stuff at the wall," and she's like, that's a good point."
Well, I think she may have aggravated him when she dropped that 100 and she tried to pull a 136-page memorandum off in the Frank's motion. But like he said, you threw me a bunch of stuff that, we saw how perfectly aligned the Frank motion was in Delphi. It's just laid out beautifully. I don't know what Ann's looked like, but the judge came back and said, "Excuse me, ma'am, what is all this? You need to bring me exactly what I need to be looking for. It's not my job to sift through all these." It was like hundreds of pages. So he called her out on that. But Judge was always so delicate with Ann, I think. Because I think he was afraid he might cause a mistrial or he may make a wrong ruling, but this judge is way more confident, right? And Ann better bring the law. You can't just come in here and bring me all this bananas stuff. And of course, do your job. And her job is to try to get all this stuff suppressed. It's damning evidence. Whether people want to believe that or not, of course, she's going to fight to get it out because that's part of the agenda there. But you should. But I don't know how much of that she's going to get to be. How much of that she'll win. It depends if he grants her this Frank's hearing and what comes of that.
Yeah, that's a tricky one for me because granting a Frank's motion in and of itself doesn't help include or exclude evidence, but it is kind of a little bit of a win for her because the state's objecting to it.
Yeah, well, and it's and it's rare to even get granted a Frank's hearing, and he hasn't granted her one yet. But he did make a very interesting comment when Ashley Jennings, the prosecutor, got up and spoke about the 3 cell towers. And I'm going to go back and really review that. We need to really look at that because he spoke up and said, "Don't say things in court that's going to make me have to give her a Frank's hearing." And I was like, "What?" And I got to go make sure I heard that correctly. And what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
And what has it got to do with cell tower? You know what I mean? So there's always been a lot of speculation as to how many cell towers were actually in that town. Was there 1? Was there 3? Was there 5? People have pulled up maps. Everybody's went to every website in the country that you could probably, in the world you could think of, trying to figure out. And look, I've looked at tons of maps. It's a hot mess with that. So that was a very interesting statement to me.
Yeah. It's crazy that Delphi is the same way. Like people are, because the prosecution against Richard Allen relied largely in part on the fact that that phone stopped connecting to anything at 2:32 p.m., which, by the way, was 12 minutes before Brad Weber's van went around the curve. But yeah, that's a large part of their case, and people were wondering, what is the cell phone reception like in Delphi? And I found out it's pretty crappy. It's
It
pretty
is,
crappy
Mr.
down there in
Steve.
the creek.
Yeah, Mr. Steve did an experiment down there with his wife, and it was horrible. It was all over the place. I have something that I was working on last night to maybe help people understand, like the CC Moore piece really helped a lot of people understand the IGG the other day when we were doing that. And I've got something I'm preparing for my next show for Idaho to maybe help people it's not meant to sway anybody, but it's meant to show you here's what to expect, and maybe this will help you understand something a little better because it helps me. And but it's interesting stuff I am working on a deeper dive on this. So I just gotta do it from your show or do it from your channel, or I'm gonna have to do I got some suggestions from All Eyes, so I'm gonna check into a few things today. But yes, got another big show in the works for Idaho.
Yeah, and I'm all about the education. Like the more you know,
Yeah, I mean it's good stuff.
The more balanced opinion that you can arrive at.
Yeah. And next week I'm gonna be trying to schedule up getting 12 gauge on with us for Salty Sunday. That may be the day we do some of this. I'm gonna think about it this week. I'm gonna get it with him and see if there's any particular points he wants to discuss on next Sunday's show. Because that's why he's coming on, is to talk Idaho. So I'll let you guys know when my deep dive show that I was just talking about will air, but and I'll get with you, Joe, and explain what I'm talking about. So
I'm there for it.
Yeah.
So speaking of Delphi, there was a huge motion filed last week. Let's look at the top of this. January 20th, 11:07 p.m. So they were up late. They were up late crafting this 24-page motion to correct errors. This was filed by Richard Allen's defense team. I actually want to look at the signatures at the end. Yeah, Baldwin submitted this. Wow, Andy. Signed respectfully the entire defense team was there for the trial. So this isn't his new attorneys that are there for the appeal. This is his actual trial team that is submitting this motion to correct. And there's some interesting stuff in here. We're just gonna do like a touch and go. You know how when airplane pilots are in training, they do touch and goes. They'll just like come to the airport and line up with the runway and go down and hit the runway, but then they take off again. So that's what we're going to do on this. We're just going to do a touch and go on this motion to correct, because we could do a deep dive and it could last for hours. And that's not what the morning show's about. We're just going to touch and go. So page 2, in violation of the 6th and 14th Amendments, Mr. Allen was deprived of counsel at the safekeeping proceeding of November 3rd, 2022. That proceeding was a critical stage at which Mr. Allen was entitled to be represented by counsel, and under United States versus Chronic 466 U.S. 648 1984, so an 84 case they're citing, and its progeny, so other case law that has relied upon that ruling, the court must presume Mr. Allen was prejudiced by being unrepresented during that proceeding. 100%. And this spells out the fact that his wife hired an attorney, and McClellan did not contact that attorney before the safekeeping hearing.
And it goes to show you how, from the very beginning, every right he had was violated. I would so appeal on just all that. His rights were completely violated through this whole entire process. That's insane.
It is. Page 3. Mr. Allen was interrogated and arrested on October 26, 2022, and booked into the Carroll County Jail under a pseudonym. The next day, October 27, 2022, Kathy Allen, Mr. Allen's wife, hired attorney Brett Gibson, who's in Lafayette, has his own law firm now. I don't know if he did back then or if he was like a partner in another law firm or an associate attorney, whatever, to represent Mr. Allen. Exhibit 1 is the affidavit of Kathy Allen. In the evening of October 27th, Mr. Gibson sent a letter by email to the Carroll County Sheriff's Office and to Nicholas McClellan, the Carroll County prosecutor. Exhibit 1B. What emerges from defendant exhibits 1C and 1D is the following. Sheriff Lesenby confirmed receipt of Mr. Gibson's letter by telephone the evening of October 27th. Also on October 27th, however, over the telephone, someone at the Carroll County Jail told Mr. Gibson that Mr. Allen was not an inmate. Are you freaking kidding me? His attorney calls the jail and asks for his client, and somebody at the jail says, we don't have your client.
No, it's ridiculous. But first of all, why put him in there under a phony name? That makes no sense to me. Who are you hiding him from at that point? The other inmates are going to, just because he comes in with his real name, you afraid it's going to be on the
who
news.
Richard Allen was then. Nobody
Right.
knew. Who's Richard
I mean, they
Allen?
can't say, but what I'm saying is they can't say, oh, it was to protect him. You know what I
Right.
mean? So why put the man in there under a phony ass name, not have legal counsel present when you decide to ship him off for safekeeping, then put him in prison under his real name and throw him in Odin's prison on top of, dude. None of this
So then-
makes sense. And now I wish I
No.
was a freaking attorney. I'd be like screaming outside the Supreme Court and get fired.
Well, then Mr. Gibson found out that eventually found out there were murder charges against him. And he's like, dude, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars for me to represent you. And Richard Allen's and Kathy are obviously like, oops, can't do that. So he sent a letter to the judge asking for representation. And in this little highlighted paragraph here, for some reason, although it had sufficient postage and was correctly addressed to the Carroll Circuit Court, Mr. Allen's letter requesting the appointment of indigent counsel was returned to the White County Jail. So he emailed a letter to the circuit court and they returned it back to him at the jail. Are you freaking kidding me? It was then remailed from there and is shown filed in this court on November 9th, which is after the safekeeping hearing. That was an error under the mailbox rule. As a matter of law, Mr. Allen's letter was considered filed with the court as of November 1st, the day his letter was mailed from the White County Jail. The prison mailbox rule, recognized by the United States Supreme Court, Houston versus Lack, a 1998 case, provides that pro se filings from an incarcerated litigant are considered filed at the time they are delivered to prison authorities for forwarding to the court. There's so much to unpack in this. Second, Mr. Allen, so a few paragraphs down, we can't get into the whole thing. Mr. Allen had the right to have a judge other than Judge Diener decide whether to issue a safekeeping order at Lesenby's request. Lesenby is the one that requested the safekeeping order. And I'm pretty sure it was when Richard Allen was in the White County Jail, not even in the Carroll County Jail. But anyway, that is because Judge Diener had engaged in ex parte communications with Sheriff Lesenby, helping Sheriff Lesenby draft his safekeeping request in violation of Rule 3.10 of the Code of Judicial Conduct. Rule 3.10 prohibits judges from drafting or reviewing documents except for family members. Judge Diener also violated Rule 2.9 of the code by engaging in substantive ex parte communications with Lesenby, which helping Lesenby draft the safekeeping order certainly were. Having violated both Rules 3.10 and 2.9, Judge Diener was obligated under Rule 2.11 of the code to recuse himself and request an appointment of a special judge. Here's the key part: before he issued the safekeeping order, not after. So he's violating the Code of Judicial Conduct by not recusing himself after helping Lesenby draft the safekeeping order request. And then he recuses himself immediately after issuing the safekeeping order.
Yeah,
which is
because he
also a
was,
violation.
because he was scared and all that of social media.
Right. The bloodlust.
I'd have been scared too, and if knowing all that was going to come out one day. Jeez.
So there's other points in between there. I'm going to hit on one that is important to me. Sixth, and perhaps most importantly, Mr. Allen had an absolute right to refuse being transferred to the custody of the department. That's the Indiana Department of Corrections, as opposed to a county jail, which is where most people spend their pretrial detention, including Stephen Stearns, including Sarah Boone. I mean, all
Brian
of them.
Koberger.
Yep, they're all in pretrial detention and county jail. They're not in prison.
Yep.
Anyway, Sheriff Lesenby's safekeeping request alleged no statutorily authorized basis for a safekeeping order other than a concern for Mr. Allen's personal safety. If the reason, and it was the sole reason for a safekeeping transfer, is only a defendant's personal safety, a defendant may refuse the transfer under Indiana Code 3533-11-2. Boy. So we'll scroll down here, page 8, in violation of the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment in Napui versus Illinois, 1953 case and its progeny. The state presented the testimony of Brad Weber that Mr. Weber arrived home in his white van. So we're getting into the white van now, and we're gonna take a look at the video. And it took me a minute to get oriented to where that video was looking at, but we'll see it here in a second because I've got that address mapped on Google Earth. Other people do too, so it's not like I've got some big news flash, but it helped me orient to where I was looking at on that video.
Yeah,
Anyway.
exactly.
The state presented the testimony of Brad Weber that Mr. Weber arrived home in his white van about 2:30 p.m. That if he leaves work at 2:02 p.m., he cannot arrive home at 2:30 p.m. without breaking the speed limit by quite a bit in that white van, in that big white van. Yeah, he did it. He didn't get home at 2:30. Either knowing the testimony was false before it was elicited or failing to correct it once it had been elicited. I'm going to read the next paragraph too. A conviction obtained through use of false evidence known to be such by representatives of the state must fall under the 14th Amendment. The same result obtains when the state, although not soliciting false evidence, allows it to go uncorrected when it appears. Napui versus Illinois, that's that 1953 case. Page 9, the state also introduced the testimony of Brad Weber that he left work at the Subaru factory in Lafayette, Indiana at 2:02 p.m. So is that when he clocked out? Because once you clock out, you have to go out to the parking lot, get in your vehicle. There are 2 stoplights there where the employees leave, so you have to wait for the green light. Then you get on State Road 38, then you get on I-65, and then you go north and whatever roads you take from there, whether it's Hoosier Heartland or whether you go on Old State Road 25 or however you get to Delphi after that. It's 40 minutes. And it's if you're clocking out at 2:02 p.m., then it's a lot more than 40 minutes. It's 45. Anyway, arrived at his home in his white cargo van at 2:30 p.m. From Mr. Weber's testimony, the state argued Mr. Weber's arrival home in his van was what interrupted Mr. Allen, causing him to take Libby and Abby across Deer Creek to unalive them on Ron Logan's property, across a flooded creek. That's my hill, and I'm going to die on that hill. The arrival of Mr. Weber's van at about 2:30 was a detail only the killer would know, said the state. The problem is the state also continued that Libby and Abby died near the time of 2:32 when the Apple Health data from Libby's phone showed that the phone stopped moving. If the arrival of Mr. Weber in his van interrupted Mr. Allen, forcing him across Deer Creek, Mr. Weber would have had to arrive near his parents' house. Yes, that's his mom's house. That's not his house, but he's been living there since like 2011, maybe, when he got divorced. He owned a house down on the south end of the county and then moved up to his mom's house. Anyway, the phone stopped moving as was located on the north side of the Deer Creek. In fact, Mr. Weber could not have arrived anywhere on the private drive before 2:54 p.m. on February 13th, 2017. His arrival at about 2:30 could have been a detail only the killer would know because it did not happen. Could not have been a detail only the killer would know because it didn't happen. The state knew or should have known as much, and the state either elicited Mr. Weber's testimony about the time he arrived home, knowing it was false ahead of time, or failed to correct the testimony once it had been elicited. Defendant's Exhibit 3A, as attested to by Matthew Hoffman in Defendant's Exhibit 3, is a video recording. We're going to take a look. Made on February 13th, 2017 by a security camera that was in the house at 5998 West County Road 252 North, which still blows my mind. You don't call roads 252 North in Indiana. But anyway, they did. And I found it. So I know what I'm looking at now. The video recording was provided to the defense by the state and has therefore been in the state's possession. Okay, but it's also been in the defense's possession. So I'm going to take a little bit of a devil's advocate argument here. If the defense had it at the time of trial, why are we just now hearing about it? Why didn't we have a hearing during the 3-day hearings, make it 4 days of hearings? Why didn't we hear about it when Brad Weber got on the stand? Because he did get on the stand during those, I think it was during the 3-day hearings. I wasn't there for any of them, but I remember seeing camera footage of him like slinking out to his car and leaving. He testified on the stand at either the hearings or the trial. Maybe it was the trial. Maybe it was on a day I wasn't there. Anyway, why, if the state had it and the defense is admitting right here that it was provided to the defense by the state, why are we just not hearing about it? And is it going to be admissible? Or is Gold going to say, too late, you should have presented this before?
Yeah. It's a little confusing.
So
there was a post on Twitter by Kara Weineke. She's the one who did the Supreme Court stuff for Rick Allen. And there was something about that you can't bring up that type of stuff upon appeal. I mean, I don't even, maybe it makes sense, but I would have to reread the tweet. You know what I mean? But it doesn't make sense. If you know something, I don't know why they wouldn't bring that stuff up if they knew about it already.
Right. If they didn't find it during discovery before trial and they didn't prepare for it, then honestly, that's on them. But does that open the door for quote unquote ineffective counsel argument? If that's the case.
Or how late was that discovery piece turned over? Or how deeply buried was it in all that data they said they had to go through? You know, I mean, it's like, I do feel for defense attorneys. Even Ann Taylor's complained about the massive dumps, but like, you know, the judge kept wanting them to make sure there's a label on everything or a sticker in the Kubriger thing the other day, because I think there's so much stuff now, you know, they got to figure out a system to learn how to handle all these large data dumps. I don't know what to tell them.
Yeah, I don't either. The security camera faced west-northwest and appears to have recorded continuously. Based on the date and timestamps on the video, it appears that the security camera was set to record date and time information as part of the recording. The time on the security camera was set 12 hours behind, such that 12 a.m. is really 12 p.m. on the same day. This is apparent due to the daylight and moonlight on the video and the associated timestamps. The security camera has a wide-angle lens that captured video of traffic on West 252 North and on County Road 625 West, and the beginning of the private drive to the Weber property, which begins as a continuation of North 625 West, approximately 190 feet north of that road's intersection with West 252 North. All right, we're going to have to look at this on Google Maps, but first I want to play the unzoomed evidence. That is Exhibit 3A is the unzoomed. And it's really hard to see anything going on here. So This starts at about 242, and 244 and a half is when we see stuff going through. You know what? Let's go back to Google Earth so you guys can get oriented. So just take a quick look at that right there. And you see that drive going off to the right, and then you see the power poles with power lines going off to the right, and then a longer road off to the left. Let's see where this is on Google Earth real quick. Okay, so here's the Monon High Bridge up here. Here's where the girls were found on February 14th, 2017. Clothes were found just off the bank on the north side of the creek. Brad Weber's house is over here. The end of the Monon High Bridge Trail is right here where I have my number 4 right there. And you can see that shape is the private drive that goes to Brad Weber's house. Where the actual distinction is between what is County Road 625 West and what is his private drive is not known for sure to me. According to the county records, like their GIS system isn't necessarily accurate. So I'm not going to take any guess, but I know that the railroad right-of-way that is now the trail comes down here just past where number 4 is. And then it becomes Brad Weber's mom's property. Not his property, his mom's property. He was living in his mom's house. Don't know if it was in the basement.
You're cracking me up with that every time.
So, 625 West, you get to Brad Weber's house down here at County Road 200 North and North 625 West. Right here at this intersection where you have to go to get back to Brad Weber's house is the Erskine home. That's Abby's grandparents own that house. They still own it. And that's where Abby and her mother were living in 2017. So you've got to turn onto this. It doesn't look like there's any off ramps off of the Hoosier Heartland. So you got to jump off of the Hoosier Heartland somewhere else to get there. Oh, here you go. So you probably jump off over here at 421, go up to 200 North, come over here. And then there is 5998 West, 252 North. So that drive you see going off to the right is actually the private drive that goes up to 252. This is 252 up here. So that's the drive you see going off to the left. And then way off in the distance is 625 West. And that's where you see the zoomed in, that's exhibit 3B. So we're going to watch 3A, but just know when you're looking, this is the camera of the house right here. It's facing west, northwest. The drive you see off to the right is this private drive that goes up north to 252 North. And then it goes west over to 625 West, which is where Brad Weber's van would have been traveling as he's coming home from work at 2:44 p.m. on February 13th, 2017. Yes, we're talking Delphi Anders. We've been through about 3 or 4 other things, and we're going to wrap it up with Delphi here once we take a look at this video. We'll do 3A first, which is the unzoomed, and then we'll do 3B, which is the zoomed. So let's kind of fast forward a little bit. Closer to 244, which is when his van was spotted. So it's going to be way off on the left there. So off to our right is that private drive that goes up to 252, and then those power poles that you see off on like the upper end of it, those go to the left over to County Road 625 West. So you've got to really be looking off to the left there to see any vehicles on 625 West. I'm going to increase this playback speed just a touch. All right, 244.02. I'm looking over there. 244.10. Still looking over there. Could be any minute now. You're supposed to see a vehicle over there, and with the naked eye, I can't see anything. I don't see anything over there.
Well, in the one that I saw that was in that file, I could see that when it wasn't this shot.
Right. No. We'll have a zoomed. We'll do the zoomed one next. 3B is the zoomed in version of it.
Oh, okay.
This is the unzoomed version, and I don't know. I
Hang
don't know
on,
how
let
they
me-
got that fit. Yeah,
I'm gonna make my screen bigger. Hold on my computer.
they have better eyes than I do. I'm
There
gonna
you
back
go.
up.
Click that. Yeah.
I'm gonna back up 1 minute.
There you go.
No, not enough. Not enough. We're gonna go back a little more. Look, like starting at 244 is where we want to start really like looking. Here we go. I can't see anything over there on County Road 625. I don't know how they found it. Because it should be like any second now, going right through our field of vision on the top middle, like 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock.
Right there past those buildings. Just saw it.
Yep. You did see it?
Yeah. But you can, once it passes the building, the tree line is so dark by that tree line, then you can't see it. Do it again.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
You're only going to see a glimpse of it.
All right, so let's look at the zoomed in version of it then. Beacon. I thought I had a picture of his van, but I guess I don't. I want to get a picture of his van. All right, here we go. So he's got a long white, like multi-passenger van, like 15-passenger van, 12-passenger van. Exhibit 3B, zoomed clips. This is specifically mentioned in the motion to correct. There's a link to it in the motion. Zoom. Oh, we're not playing. Why are we not playing? It's Monday, folks. It's definitely Monday.
Is those buildings on the left-hand side there.
There we go. Oh, I just saw it go in front of the
See
buildings.
it go? See?
Yep.
And then right there. And then there again. Right there. You can see the whole thing. And then it's going to move. I can still see it. There it goes. And then you can't. I can still see it now. And then after it goes back through here is where I really can't ever see it again.
There we go. So this is the zoomed in clip.
Yeah.
That's his white van
Yep.
at 2:44. The timestamp was 2:44 something.
Yeah. So that right there to me is the hugest piece, that there is perjury done.
A couple different times, because didn't he change his story a couple different times?
Yeah, but the one that matters is what was told on that damn witness stand.
Right.
And that timestamp that shows that van coming in at that time doesn't match up with what they said in court, what he testified to on the witness stand.
Right. And the state knew this. Okay, so there are those houses. So if you look on my Google Maps here, you've got the camera over here in the lower right, and you've got those three houses right there that are at the intersection of 625 and 252. So that's where we see his van cross in front of those at 244. So he's still got to drive all the way around the rest of that. He may not get home until
So
like
did the state,
2:48.
all right, so did the state knew about this. Did they bury it so deep and turn it over so last minute that the defense didn't even know about it after trial?
Right.
Like you said, continuing to go through the dumps that they had, trying to get ready for appeal, and they're like, what the hell, fine, but damn it, man, if they can prove they didn't turn this, so I want to know when the defense actually received this.
Yeah, and if he's crossing in front of those houses at 244 and a half, he's not tearing down this gravel road. He's just taking his time, 25, 30 miles an hour.
Well, yeah,
It's going to be 248, 249, 250 before he gets home.
Exactly. And I was reading, I don't know. Okay, I made some clips last night. I've got to finish making videos for, but Holman did, several interviews, and there was some I hadn't reviewed yet, and this and that, and some Becky Patty interview. And anyway, so what I was gathering, what they are going, they thought, not Becky Patty, but like Holman and them, that he was going to order them down the hill and essay them under the trestle. Still, when you go down that hill, you're there at the drive. How did if they were going under the trestle and then that's when the van passed and startled him, they would have seen each other. They weren't going, now, which one was it, dude? Were they going under the trestle, or were they going down the hill and then crossed the drive and already going down the next hill when they got startled? I mean, it's not making sense. It's not freaking adding up.
No, it's not.
It's just really not. And that's the whole thing about this whole case. If they would have shown me something that made sense that I could have really got behind, I'd have been all over it. But the more that came out and the more that's still coming out, it's like, wow. And I even got Holman talking about they didn't really like any other law enforcement agencies. He was even complaining about how there was too many cooks in the kitchen. And that video will be coming out. Don't worry. I'm like, damn it, dude, y'all wanted to really keep this small town good old boy situation. You didn't want nobody in there at all nosing around.
I got one question for you that's kind of been in the back of my mind since I found out that Abby lived right there at the corner of 200 North and 625 West. Did they get dropped off? Oh, no, she called her dad. She called Derek to come pick him up, didn't she? Libby did.
That was the deal. Because they were at Libby's house that morning and wanted to go to the bridge. And when they were told, yeah, you could go, but you got to get a ride home, that's when Libby called her dad. And Derek said, yeah, he'd come and get them when he got done. He was out doing some field work for Becky. She's a house appraiser. So when he got done with that is when he was going to pick them up. And of course, when he got there and he couldn't find them. Started calling.
Yeah, but they're just like around the corner from Abby's house, though.
But
so they didn't really want to go back to Abby's house. They wanted to go back to Libby's house.
Yeah, they were going back. I think they just had more fun at Libby's. They was all this stuff. They were. I don't know. They're girls. There's no telling which. They probably bounced. My neighbor's daughter is their age, and she bounces back and forth between her house and her friend's house constantly. The girls do. There's her little friends, but so. Could they get away with more at Becky's? Because, not that is not throwing shade at Becky, but I mean, Becky was working, you know what I mean? Was there less freedom at Abby's? We were told Abby couldn't have a phone and things of that nature. So who knows? But yeah, I guess the plan was to go back to Libby's, or maybe to go back to Libby's and then take Abby home because school was the next day. So who knows? I don't know. I just know that Weber's story, this footage is not what was testified to on that witness stand, and that's a huge problem for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not, okay, I won't say it's not possible. It's highly unlikely that if he left Subaru Suzu at 2:02 p.m. that he was there on the north end of that bend by the Monon High Bridge on his private drive at 2:30. Just no way. No way.
Well, and I think that video, if that video and all that timestamp is correct, then that just proves he wasn't doing what he said he was doing. Right, correct. The state that V's comment, the crime was done by 2:32, and the phone was under the body. never moved again. So if anything happens that time, Rex state's case. Yeah, I mean, we just saw that the timestamp showed him coming not until 2:44 after the state claims the girls were. I mean, it's just come on now. We got to get some appeals going. Something's got to happen. And the sad part is, a lot of these filings are going right back before Judge Gull. And we saw when we did the West Memphis 3, when they applied for a new trial, they had to apply to the same judge and was denied. Right? So, do we think she's going to deny or grant any of this? No. I will be surprised. She may do correct the errors stuff, but anything else they ask for, she's going to probably deny, which I don't know if, that will help them during an appeal or not. But I'm just saying, y'all Indiana people need to really I would be so furious with the way that state's run and the way they do things. I would like form some sort of group, some sort of citizen group and be like, look, we're not taking it.
Yeah, I think Bob knows an attorney from IU that I think is the head of like an Innocence Project type of thing. I think I've seen him on there a couple times. Let's go down the hill. I want to take us down the hill one more time. It's been a while. Like when I was out there October 31st last year. And my phone was running out of memory, so this video is not as long as I would have liked it to have been. After I went down this hill, I had to sit down and like delete 400 pictures off of my phone so I could record more video when I went back across the Deer Creek.
Go live. Just cannot get enough signal out here to go live. But here I'm at the south end of the bridge.
Oh, hold on. No, I'm talking too fast. Playback speed. Let's go back to 1. Normal.
Parrots in. And no need to go any further out on it.
Yeah, I was not walking on that bridge.
Because we know the girls got to the south end here, south end of the bridge, and that's where down the hill happened. This is
and the Weber property ends like
the only realistic way to go down the hill is up to the east and the north.
That's a steep
bank. Yeah, that would be better because the south end over here, or the west end, that hill is really steep. And there's a pretty well established path on this side. So we're going to go down here and try not to fall on my ass because of all the leaves. Wet leaves on rocks. A bad mix. And no hiking boots. Not today.
I'm struggling way too much here. I'm struggling way too much.
Yeah, you're going to get some bad angles here because I'm having to 3-point this thing. So, down the hill. There's no trespassing.
Yep, there's Brad Weber's drive right there. And you can see there's a fence post right in front of me. And there's a fence line that kind of runs parallel with the railroad tracks. And that's where the railroad property ends. And that's where Brad Weber's, his mother's property begins. And one of these trees on the other side of the road right there is the one that had the trail cam that I said hi to Brad on.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Dizzy and I were she's like, she remembers this day. So do I, Dizzy. For those of you who don't know what this is, Joe did go down to the bridge and take some video footage like he was explaining, and it's on his channel. So if you haven't had a chance to review it and what all he was able to do there, take a look at it.
So I'm not going down the hill that way. They might have that day.
Next time, I have a body camera that has 10 hours of recording time on it.
And you know what? At the bottom
that's what you guys will see. There's that fence post that's like the property marker. No trespassing sign. There's the trestle.
So this is the less direct route down the hill, which I'm using because of the no trespassing signs. It looks like there's a decent.
And my memory's about to run out. There it goes.
All right, that's.
But see, how did Weber not see them if they weren't already, like you said, there's another hill area you have to go down to get to the creek. They would have already had to been across the drive and down that part for them not to see each other, only to hear the van.
Yeah, that's a steep bank right there. And if they were down the first hill, he definitely would have seen them. If they were down the second
Definitely.
hill, if they were up against the bank, he may not have seen them. But
Well, I agree with that, but I don't think it happened like that. If they were, now they're saying that, because I'm going to put that video out where they were like, oh, that he intended to essay under the trestle. That makes me believe with that. Well, is that where they were at when he was startled? Why? Because they're saying that the van startling him is what forced him across the creek with the girls. So why were they already down the thing getting ready to cross the creek if that didn't happen until after the van? Oh, see? No, not
all right, now
making
you're
sense.
mentioning the trestle. So we've got to watch my video going up the hill before I went down, before I came back down the hill, because
Okay.
you can see the trestle and you can see the different levels of the hillside. I think this video is a little better for explaining that. So I called it up the hill. So I'm down in between the Deer Creek and the railroad trestle. The railroad trestle is straight ahead of us, and the Brad Weber private drive is off to our left, up a very steep bank.
To the southeast end of the bridge, it does kind of flatten out a little bit. The slope of the hill. Still, it's going to have the same leaf cover, or even more leaves. Most of the leaves are up the trees, so the ground cover was about the same.
I've got to do better with my
in February, so it's going to be slippery like it is
videography.
today with snow melt. I see something with orange ribbon halfway up the hill. Which way did they go? Which way did they go? Because they didn't go this way in February. They had to have taken this longer slope here.
That's the Monon High Bridge.
It goes all the way back. But that's the only way you're getting up or down that, off of the end of the bridge.
See how there's a more gradual slope up there on the top coming down? That's the only way you're safely getting down from Brad Weber's private drive.
That's the only way. Is on that. Because, I mean, you could maybe on one of these, like right there, it might be flat enough to slide down on your butt. But Abby's hands were pristine. So they got washed off. If they slid down on their butt, their hands are getting muddy and dirty. If they didn't slide down on their butt, then this embankment here with a flatter slope is the only way that they went down the hill from the south end of the bridge to get over to the other side of the creek, that way across the creek.
Patience, folks. I'm getting ready to go up to Brad Weber's drive. And there's the trestle that you say Jerry Holman claimed that Richard was going to take them to SA.
Yeah.
Okay. That is the best way up and down the hill from Brad Weber's drive. Like going off more to the northeast is good. That's way too steep.
Yeah, you can see there's a little bit of a path here on the edge of this. I know I'm going to take a header. I know I am. These leaves are slippery. And I did not wear my hiking shoes because I knew I was going to cross the creek. Well, I knew I was going to try to cross the creek. Dead tree.
So Richard Allen had heart problems, right? I don't have heart problems.
That's what we hear.
I came.
See how that's a nice path right there. Though.
Well,
Like
that's
next
Brad.
to
Plus he had some alcohol, remember?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he drank. He drank.
Allegedly, he was drinking. Mm-hmm. So
Right.
There's Brad Weber's drive right there. So we are at the top of the hill next to Brad Weber's drive. This is right where something happened on February 13th, 2017. This is it right here. When he told them to come down the hill, they came down here right where I'm looking. Was there a car waiting there to pick him up? Did he take him down? Did he take him down that path where I just walked up to the bottom of the second hill?
The first deputy said that in the last hour of his shift, he came to search for the girls, 5:30 to 6:30.
Right. So the deputy came at 5:30 and stopped right here on Brad Weber's drive underneath the trestle and said he walked around for about 5 minutes and looking, didn't see anything.
Not even no footprints, fresh footprints that they were taken down under the trestle first. Come on. Well,
He
they're
stopped here and
horrible
looked around
investigators, so we know that much.
Yeah. Can you imagine being a deputy that is told there are missing girls, and you go out and you spend about 45 minutes looking for them? You kind of walk around under the bridge. You kind of walk around on Brad Weber's property. You walk to his shed, his outbuilding, but you don't look in it. And then you just leave and go home, and then find out the next day that the two girls you were looking for were unalived, brutally.
Yeah.
for 5 to 7 minutes.
That's Brad Weber's private drive right there, that gravel drive.
Yep.
And that goes back to 625 West to the
Weber's
west-southwest.
Drive as it connects back to County Road 625 West and wraps around to his house.
Ooh, I'm almost on his
He's probably
property.
a little irritated. He got served with a subpoena yesterday. So, oh, is that a trail cam? That looks like a trail cam that's pointing down. Okay. Hi.
So that's the second, Joe.
Yep.
So right there, that's where you have to go down toward the creek, right?
Correct. Yes,
So
the creek
see,
is
if
off.
so that's what I'm saying. If they, to not be seen by each other, they would have had to have already been down toward that creek and not under
Right.
the trestle or
Right.
down by the. So crazy.
Right here, I am standing exactly where his van would have been if he had scared Richard Allen with his van. I'm standing exactly in that same spot.
So makes no sense that's what forced him down the creek if he was already down the hill going toward the creek. No, you're a liar, Holman. Carter.
Yeah, look at how steep that bank is on the other side there. They didn't go
That
down
looks
there.
like a trail cam that's pointing down. Okay.
Yeah, this is right where his van would have been. You see up? Whoa! Did you see off to the right there? I'm looking down so right here where my mouse is right now. That is towards the Deer Creek. That's like 20 yards from the Deer Creek, 30 yards. Right there.
Yeah.
And that is an incredibly steep bank. Now, so if they were up against the bank, like in our direction towards me, towards the camera, he wouldn't have been able to see them.
Well, I get
So-
that, but they say he didn't go down there until he was startled by the van.
So he was off to the left by the trestle.
But I don't really know where they were, but my point is, if they say the van is what frightened him and sent him down to the creek, that makes no sense because you would have already been down that little hill going toward that creek. You wouldn't have
Right.
been, he would have had to have been on the private drive under the trestle, just coming down the first hill. They would have been
Like
seen.
right where I'm at. Like right where
Yeah.
I'm at. Right
Yes.
Now. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Running and driving naked girls frantically across a creek isn't exactly a smart way to hide either. It's just, that makes no sense to me because they continue to say the van startled him and forced him to take the girls across the creek. Okay, maybe he already went down that second hill, realizing, whoa, this hill leads to that private drive. We better get on down to that. I mean, maybe so, but it's just not making sense to me. Why be forced to go across the creek if you don't think that dude even seen you, unless you thought he saw you? I don't know.
And we still don't have answers because of how shitty the police investigation was.
Yeah, that
Not dropping
van
an
was,
F-bomb. Not
That
dropping
van
that
didn't
ball.
well, I will if you want me to. That that effing van didn't come through there at the time they say it did. We all saw the
Nope.
video.
Nope.
Oh, is that a trail cam?
Yeah, look at how steep that bank is right there.
That looks like a trail cam.
They did not go down that hill.
Okay. Hi.
I just said hi to Brad Weber on his trail
So
cam.
down the hill would have been
It's hard to hear, but I said it. Now I'm going up the hill that I tried not to fall down later.
All right, there's fence. Okay. There's fence line for the railroad right away right there. So that's a threshold onto Weber's property. He has a sign posted, no trespassing. So we're not going to trespass. And it's down railroad property. All right. This is down the hill. The way I came with.
So you can see even when you're on top of the first hill, and granted there are more leaves than there would have been in February, but we're still looking at similar foliage. I mean, how hard it is to see down at the bottom of that. So where were they when Jerry Holman says that Rick was trying to essay them? Where were they?
Right.
Where's my finger? There's my finger. Along the bottom of the hill that way.
I need to exercise more.
Look at that.
Maybe that should have been a New Year's resolution, along with reducing my F-bombs on my lives.
I didn't have to walk on that after all. Just went 4 miles around. The other way, so there's that way. And there's where the old railroad bed goes that way.
See, that's where you're looking at now. About, gosh, I think it's like maybe 50 feet from there is a gate that says no trespassing. That is the end of the railroad right of way as it was dedicated for a trail in the beginning of the Weber property. So eventually, over time, when all the railroads were abandoned, they would either dedicate them for rails to trails projects, or they would revert them back to the owners on either side of the tracks.
And there's a gate right there, keeping people off the Weber land.
Yeah, you
Rightfully
can
so.
see it. Good videography, Joe. Good job.
Good fences make good neighbors.
This is true.
Lots of private property, no trespassing signs.
This is right where the girls were when they heard down the hill. Five more seconds.
All right. Time for some pictures.
All right, so we've been here for an hour and 45, which is probably about as long as I want to do on the morning lives.
Well, it's been a good live. I appreciate you doing this. I'm looking forward to more of your morning shows. And we'll, like I said, we both got, we've been talking about different things to bring to the community. So this is, I like doing the morning shows too. So
Yeah, and are you going to come out with your next show tomorrow morning?
don't know yet. It depends. I may have to borrow your channel. I don't know yet.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I don't have no more talk time left. But
You're getting
like
there.
I said, All Eyes did recommend something that I'm going to check into here in a little bit. So I'll let you guys know. I'll set it
All
up
right.
and yeah.
I think most, if not all of you, are subbed up to Salty. But if you're not, make sure you do.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. We've gotten some, and we even got, on our last show, we really got some great feedback on with the way we were covering, even with the Koberger case and the Delphi case, and the community being calm and welcoming, to everyone. So we really appreciate the feedback we're getting, and yeah, appreciate all of you guys for being here. And you guys
Absolutely.
have a fabulous day. It's rainy here in Florida, so I don't know what your weather's like, but hopefully you're not freezing or dealing with rain.
Actually, it's going to rain here in the East Valley for the first time since August.
Wow.
Yeah. How crazy is that?
That is crazy. Mm-mm-mm. Well, I'm staying inside and staying warm today because it's cooled off again in Florida. I had a couple of days of beautiful weather and I just loved it. And I spent a lot of time outside, and now it's like, rain. Jesus. But anyway,
All right.
I'll be
Thanks.
fine. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful week, and keep checking back in. We're going to have more updates on the cases as they come down, and it sounds like Salty's got a nice little project to go over too. So thank you, everybody.
Have a great day.